In this video, I'm going to be drawing my interpretation of the Impostor from the wildly successful video game Among Us. I'm also going to be reading a story to go along with it. Now, I was expecting this story to be terrible, but I found myself getting quite invested in it and wondering what was going to happen next, so hopefully you guys enjoy it too. There are more parts to this story which I have not read and more are still getting released, as it's a fanfic basically. So I'll leave a link down below where you can check out the author, whose name is FoxyAnna123, and you can read the story for yourself. Or, if you want me to continue the story in a future video, smash the like button, subscribe, leave a comment, all of that stuff. And if people enjoy it, maybe I'll make another video. But with that being said, let's jump right into the story. Among Us. Impostor Love. The air was dead silent, as Pink and the rest of her crewmates all piled on board the Skeld. The last team on this ship had been foiled by imposters, and therefore was in a wreck of a shape. The very same risk still lingered, as no one knew when and where an impostor would board. They could be just fine, or headquarters would never hear from them again. But Pink needed the money. She was on hard times and desperately took the job, seeking the higher pay. Her tablet beeped. She looked down to see a list of tasks had appeared. Just a short one, however. There were many crewmates, so it was evenly distributed. Her first task was to submit a scan. Easy enough. She looked up when she saw someone walking by, dark green. He had been quiet the entire way there, not bothering to talk, or really bother being near anyone. She watched as he waddled off towards admin, before heading to the medical bay herself. As she walked in, Pink could see Cyan inspecting samples. Not wanting to distract him, she climbed up onto the scanner and let it do its thing. The greenish light almost hurt her eyes, but it was necessary, and the helmet blocked most of it anyway. She watched as the stats popped up on her tablet. 3'6", 92 pounds, O negative blood, all correct. She was almost astonished, but there was no time, more tasks to do. Pink swiped to her next task. Swipe card in admin. Oh, she thought, Green might still be in there. And with that, she waddled off, noting a metallic creak as she exited the room. Pink waddled down the hallway. She had completed the rest of her tasks, and only had one left in storage to activate the chute. She paused when a metallic scent hit her nose. It was coming from electrical. Shaking slightly in her suit, she peeked in. Horrified, she screamed, slamming the report button attached to her wrist. She had found the corpse of Cyan, blood pooling around the lifeless body. All the crewmates hurried into the cafeteria to meet, briefly taking off their helmets to speak. Black, who weirdly enough had long white hair, turned to Pink. So the body was in electrical. She nodded, still shaking from the sight of her dead crewmate. Did you see anyone prior? She shook her head, tears threatening to well over and roll down her cheeks. Black looked skeptical for a moment, before turning to the others. Pink glanced at Green, who was dead quiet. She noted his brownish red hair and green eyes, but quickly looked away when his eyes met hers, her cheeks flushing red. Get it together, Pink, she thought. She tuned back into the conversation, noticing how Brown and Orange were having a screaming match, because Orange swore he saw Brown looking in a vent. Before long, most of the crew had decided to throw out Brown, just in case. He fought tooth and nail on the way to the airlock, but they successfully launched him out, watching as his body floated away. The tension was high after Brown was thrown out, except for Green, who seemed oddly calm. He glanced at Pink, who was putting her helmet back on, gathering her red hair so it didn't peak. He had been on many missions like this, but something about this one felt different. Like a wrenching feeling in his stomach was screaming at him to leave, but he ignored it and pulled out his tablet. "Hey Green." He almost dropped it when he heard Pink's quiet voice so close. Looking down to see her right there. He couldn't see her face, but the nervousness in her body language was loud and clear. "What is it?" His voice was monotone, as to not give away any cues. Pink shyly took out her tablet and looked up at him. "Could you come with me to storage? I have to empty the chute." Odd. Why does she trust me? Green mused to himself. But the blindly trusting crewmate amused him, so he shrugged and nodded. Pink gave a little wiggle that indicated happiness and started walking down towards storage. Green followed soon after. The smell of Cyan's blood lingered in the air despite the cleanup. The smell probably wouldn't fade for days, as the crimson liquid had time to seep into the cracks and crevices between panels. He watched as Pink pulled the lever on the chute, the clutter and garbage being released into the vacuum. Turning when he heard footsteps, he spotted Lime standing in the doorway, just looking at them. He knew what Lime was, but he wasn't about to step aside, staring him down until he waddled away. He looked back at Pink to see she was looking at him now. "All my tasks are done, I guess. Do you have any to do?" Green shrugged. Maybe he did have a task, maybe not. He hadn't had a chance to check his tablet. The alarms suddenly blared. The reactor was about to have a meltdown. Without any words, Pink sprinted out of the room to fix the issue, Green running alongside her. When they arrived, Blue and Black had already fixed the issue. Pink audibly sighed with relief, now starting to visibly shake in her rubbery spacesuit. Green just stared at her. He still had that knotted feeling in his stomach, and glanced at Lime, who had just arrived. He had a red stain on his arm, and he quickly wiped it off before the others looked at him. Green glared through his helmet and put a hand on Pink's shoulder, causing her to jump slightly at his touch. As he leaned down to whisper, "Let's go find White. I have a bad feeling." He could see Pink's confused expression through the clear area of her helmet, but she nodded and followed him out of the reactor room. Green was sure of it. Lime had just done something, and his suspicions were proved correct as they turned the corner and he spotted an expanding pool of red. As he stepped into security, he saw it clear. White was dead. With White's body found, a grim darkness falls over the crew. The bickering increases in intensity, accusations being thrown left and right, but nothing goes anywhere. The vote passes, and the crew carries on. "Jeez," Green mutters under his breath. "These guys will rip themselves asunder before I even get close to them." Whether they died by his hand or by their own, it didn't matter. He would still get paid. Pink looks to him. Even behind the tinted visor, he could read her distressed gaze loud and clear, and she could read his too. Everyone was bugged out, and this bout of growing mistrust was salt in the ever-growing wound. He follows sluggishly behind Lime and Pink before heading towards storage. Green pauses at a doorway to take a breath. This stress was suffocating, and his thoughts only served to slow him down. Pink stops and pops open a panel to repair and examine the wiring, when Lime pauses behind her, looking around while she solders the new wiring bits into place. Lime slowly slips a blade from his suit pocket and approaches her from behind. In a move that nobody would have suspected, not even himself, Green passes behind Lime, sliding his knife along the upper part of the suit, where the oxygen lines connected in, and where Lime's neck surely was. Green rounds the corner into electrical, and Lime's body falls to the ground with a thud, his oxygen line still hissing. From around the corner, Green waits for the inevitable. Over the comms, an ear-piercing screech rings out as Pink turns to see Lime's body laying there, knife in his cadaverous clutches, as his oxygen line spits and sputters bubbles into a pool of his own blood. Within seconds, the body is reported, and another meeting is called. With Pink nearly in tears, Green deathly silent, and the other crewmates at each other's throats with accusations of treachery, threats of bodily harm, and relations with one's mother, another vote passes, and still one impostor among them. "Hey, Green, can you escort me to electrical to finish my last task?" Pink's quivering voice was the hardest thing of all for Green to stomach. He nervously agrees, knowing that this will be his chance to tell her. That, or it will be the last thing she's ever told. The two of them make their way to electrical. The room hums with electrical circuitry and whirring pumps, providing coolant to the computer systems and breakers. She tinkers with the console, diverting power and flipping the breakers. Green sighs. Here goes nothing. The doors to electrical slam shut. Pink panics, knowing the impostor could show up at any time, or they may already be with her. Green musters up the courage to speak. "Pink, I have something to tell you." Pink stared at Green, shaking in her rubbery suit. She started to feel suspicious, but she never thought he would actually turn on her. "Pink, can we sit for a bit?" His tone wasn't menacing or threatening. It was scared. Green sat by the door and removed his helmet, his gingerish hair dotted with beads of sweat. Pink sat where she was, still wary of him. "So, is it you?" Green paused, gulped, and then nodded. His eyes had lost the luster they previously had, replaced by a dull shade of guilt. "And you killed Lime. Why?" She watched as Green clenched his fist. "He was going to hurt you." Pink was conflicted. Here was the impostor, enemy number one, but he was also here confessing that he murdered in order to save her. Did she believe he was genuine, or report him like the rest of the crewmates likely would? She didn't have time to decide, as he suddenly burst into quiet sobbing. Feeling his distress, Pink, against her better judgment, stood up and waddled over, sitting next to him. "Why are you crying?" He wiped his eyes, now puffy and red, and looked at her. Maybe I don't want to be the impostor. Maybe I just want to be here with you. Pink blushed. Why specifically with her? But she didn't push it. Instead, gently wrapping her arms around him and having a tight hug returned, making her squeak out of surprise. You don't need to kill. I won't tell the others, if you promise not to kill anymore. She was interrupted by him squeezing her even tighter. Yes, I promise. Pink sighed and patted his back. Let me finish up this wiring, and we can go join the others. Green nodded and watched her waddle back over to the panel and put the last of the wires in place. A small message popped onto her PDA. All tasks complete. All the crewmates filed into the cafeteria. Purple, who had a smaller version of himself, had a small cooler and placed it on the table. We've completed our tasks and weeded out the imposters. Time to celebrate. The crewmates collectively cheered and each reached into the cooler for a drink. Basic stuff like juice. Pink grabbed apple juice while Green grabbed something orange. She moved her helmet in order to drink. It would be pretty hard with it on. Green watched her with interest, which confused Pink. She's just drinking juice, but Green didn't care. She was interesting. As they finished the drinks, a message popped up on everyone's PDA that the sleeping quarters have opened, and a random pairing of roommates popped up. Pink looked eagerly to see who she was assigned. Green. That made her heart flutter. But why? They wouldn't be sharing a bed. In fact, they'd be across the room from each other. She felt a presence when Green leaned over her shoulder to look. This made her cheeks go even redder. Why was he so close? And why didn't she mind? Green and Pink made their way to their room. Very basic, 2 beds, sheets, some shelves, and a singular bathroom and shower. Pink unzipped her suit, revealing the skin-tight undersuit they all wore underneath it. While it made the thick rubbery suit more bearable, she couldn't help but be bothered by how revealing it was. Not really skin revealing, but it left nothing to the imagination. It only differed with the guys that they wore an extra piece of protection, down there, that also made it less awkward when the suits came off. She could feel Green's eyes on her. My eyes aren't down there. She heard distressed shuffling as Green quickly got out of his suit and into bed. Pink slipped under her own sheets a moment later, as the lights flickered off and they both drifted to sleep. That's it for this video. Let me know what you guys thought. How did the drawing turn out? I had a lot of fun doing this one. And as always, a massive thank you to my patrons for supporting what I do. I appreciate all you guys on screen right now. You guys are awesome, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.